Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Ok Xoomer, Zoom conversations with creative engineers and more. I'm Aaron Lichtig, Xometry guy and former Jeopardy champion, and I'm here today with Samantha Snabes. Samantha is a co-founder and catalyst for Re3D, which offers the largest affordable industrial 3D printers that are out there on the market, and they can print from pellets, filament, or regrind. Samantha is a serial entrepreneur with a lot of ventures under her belt. She is also the global chair of IEEE's Entrepreneurship Steering Committee and has been a social entrepreneur in residence for NASA's HQ. Samantha, we are so glad to have you here today. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
So first, tell our audience more about Re3D and what motivated you to start it.
Sure. Re3D is a spinoff of Engineers Without Borders, NASA Johnson Space Center, from our time there. And then when I had the privilege of supporting headquarters as well, we were traveling around the world and saw that some of the groups we worked with weren't excited about having the dependence on aid and imported services and goods, and there was high unemployment, but more importantly, the people we met were really brilliant. So we started to noodle on what it would look like if more groups outside of just the hotspots where 3D printers were could have access to one more tool in their toolkit to problem solve independently and locally. And we started sharing this idea online through Engineers Without Borders and through the NASA community, and it slowly got a following. And then Startup Chile gave us $40K to quit our jobs and try to make what we called a toilet-sized 3D printer, starting under $10,000, so people could actually print things that were functional, affordably, with a longer-term vision to be able to power the printer by waste. And so thanks to the community support, maybe some of you out there, and your votes and pitch competitions, and backing us with letters of support for grants. We sell our filament printers in 55 countries around the world, and we've also been able to modify our whole fleet now to also be able to print with pellets or regrind, so garbage or non-garbage directly. And it's been really interesting, even during COVID, and despite the product still being in beta, people are really keen to get it. So we're shipping those all over the world now too.
So you can actually print directly from trash.
Yeah, so right now in my garage, one of our teammates is taking the canola oil jugs he ground up at a granulator we installed at the Habitat for Humanity Restore locally to print directly from shredded HDPE, while we have another teammate today working on some further testing with Michigan Tech University using shredded water bottles alongside the Gigabyte X they have there. But we've qualified a number of materials. Some of them require additional features that are also in work and being developed through some grants we received, and some of them print really well out of the gate.
Now, how large are the parts that you can print?
Yeah, we can go as big as your budget, but our smallest system is 600 millimeters cube, or roughly 2 foot. And we go up to our standard offering is a meter. It's called Terabyte. So you can get Terabyte in the filament-based form, or Terabyte X if you want to print with pellets or flake. And then we started to slowly share that we have a custom printer that we'll be releasing commercially called Exabot that's around the corner in the month. And that one is 6 feet tall.
Wow, so that is a pretty big one.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Awesome. So this is not your first company, not your first kind of new venture. Can you tell our audience about some of the other projects you've been involved with?
Yeah, when I was an undergrad, I got to work on a research project and then slowly have more stake in it. And it was a project under DARPA to make what they called an artificial immune system. And specifically, we were focused on making a bioreactor, which is just a simple device to allow us to create the conditions to grow stem cells in 3 dimensions and to have them be self-renewing within a closed loop. So we made it to phase 3, which is commercialization, and my former boss spun out as my partner, and that was in Detroit, and recession started a little bit early, so I'm remembering a lot of some of those past anxieties in the last couple months and experiences. It's kind of interesting, but we were really blessed to be able to sell it in 2009, and that's when some of my colleagues at NASA invited me to work with them.
Excellent. The 3D printing community has been a big part of the response to COVID-19. How was Re3D involved in that?
Yeah, it's interesting because our filament printers have been out in the community since 2013, and our company developed a hardware, and the first gigabots were in Latin America, and then we have an outpost in Puerto Rico, which gives us a unique perspective being in the Caribbean, and then we have 2 locations in Austin, Texas, and Houston, Texas, where I am now. So with that, plus the 55 countries that we serve, we started seeing a trend even before the waves hit the US, where our overseas customers were printing PPE. And then, and it's funny, a couple of them shared designs like this. So for the tension relief band or the comfort strap with us. And we're like, oh, what's that for? And they showed the image of the mask. And we're like, that's interesting. And fast forward, now we're making them for our friends here in the States. But what was really fascinating is it's a shared need, right? So we've been able to see the evolution of different designs over the last few months. And then as the hotspots moved into Texas and Puerto Rico, we were able to work with locations around our offices as well to geographically band with other makers and other 3D printing companies to serve the high demand that the hospital saw in April and May. So we've been making all the same stuff everyone else has, and then also on the weekend sometimes participating in hackathons and different opportunities to share our designs, and like through the NIH 3D printing exchange and whatnot. But we continue to try to advocate for our customers who do have needs. So there's some communities that are still really struggling to get PPE to the first responders and hospitals. And if you'd like to learn more about that, please jump on our website, and our teammate Charlotte can connect you. I think she was working with a few groups last weekend to get a few thousand face shields to a group in Nigeria that could really benefit from it. And there's a lot of amazing initiatives, regardless of if your skill set is design or printing, to join the force and the cause, because we're all in this together. We still print a lot of PPE in kind, as well as under contract ourselves from our factory. So if you need support with that, feel free to reach out. But Charlotte and Impact Hub have also started an initiative specifically in the Houston community, and we hope to eventually scale it, called PPE for the People. Because what we're noticing with the digital divide is not everyone's aware of the progress of PPE production or the resources to get free PPE. And small business owners who maybe didn't qualify for loans in marginalized communities need access to PPE. For example, nail salons need splash guards, which isn't a printed product, but it's really essential to make sure they're protected. So we've committed as a small business ourselves to try and help small business owners reopen safely, and to help those fast food workers and maybe non-traditional candidates of the PPE. So if you're interested in learning more about that, it's called PPE for the People. And if you need PPE, you can register on that, and people can donate to get it to you.
That's a great effort. So please, if anyone is in need or can help, definitely check that site out. Now, Samantha, looking out kind of beyond the COVID period, assuming we can get beyond this over the next 2 or 3 years, where do you see Re3D being at that time? Like, what's your goal?
Yeah, well, I think everyone's goal right now is to stay solvent and keep the band together, and to continue, our R&D, as well as our current, portfolio delivery and our service offerings. What's been interesting for Re3D now, being global, and then over the last COVID period, is seeing what businesses stayed essential and what businesses stayed open or didn't, and what the demand of that demographic was. And a couple interesting things happened. First, 3D printing sales to date, I think both on the desktop level, I'll have to fact check that, as well as the industrial side, are primarily North America. Like, they have a big pull between Canada, the US, and also Mexico. But we've seen a shift now to, and that used to be over 70% of our sales, to that now being all global. And even including like markets maybe previously we hadn't engaged with, like Madagascar or remote areas in New Zealand, not just the bigger cities or Australia. And what we're finding is, as supply chains have been disrupted and as people look at being in lockdown for extended period of time with closed borders, there's a increased pressure to think about local manufacturing and to have the resources to do that. So that's been great for us because in addition to making big things, you can do a lot of batches. So we're a candidate solution, and this ability to print from waste is coming up because in a lot of, particularly the island nations, their landfills are filling up. In Puerto Rico, they're expected to be at capacity in 2 years. So not only do you have to know how to be able to manufacture on site, you have a waste problem and borders are closed. So how are you gonna get rid of it? So it's I think for us, it's really stimulated more discussion around like the 3D printing and garbage conversation that might have taken a longer time. So I think we'll be doing probably more and more strategic partnerships with municipalities, manufacturers that are trying to get rid of trim and waste, and then also thinking about in terms of disaster response and resiliency, like what you do with all those water bottles that get donated in times of crisis, and how could you use that waste to make something else. We've also seen a lot of pressure on us just really maturing our materials testing protocols, even before someone gets a contract print. People are really interested in advanced materials, and maybe people that did it in-house, even in large, say like Fortune 50s, right now are unable to do that internally. So they're leaning on us. So we just, we upgraded, we got a new admit machine, shout out to them to complement our Instron. And even scanning services. Every day this week, we've had, a scanning request, I think for over a few $1,000s each, because industrial companies, maybe their vendor that makes a part is in lockdown or closed or not viable anymore. So they need to quickly get that scan of their component to be able to fabricate it. So we have a Creality scanner that we really love and are thankful to have training in it. But I think from us as an organization, just really maturing our materials testing capability and scanning capability. I see that probably continuing to grow just because there's only so many people that do it. So if you're interested in those markets, you should jump into because there's demand right now.
That's awesome. I'd never really thought about 3D printing as a solution to waste management problems, especially in places that are locked down or on an island or otherwise isolated. That could make a very big difference.
Yeah, it's super interesting. So there's there's a need for like an education layer around that. How do you teach? And we see this with our CNCs as well internally. How are you going to teach subtractive manufacturing or additive printing if you can't physically have big classes in an environment and have everyone contacting the same machine? So there's a whole need, I think, on the education side too. As people get into this and because they have to. And again, it's not an end all be all. And for PPE production, it's really just like, it kind of helps when there's a super need, that's definitely injection molding is definitely a better solution longer term. But, there are instances where 3D printing is a really good fit. And so I think we're going to see increased adoption of it.
Awesome. Well, Samantha, thank you so much for joining us. You're doing some great work at Re3D, and thanks for all you're doing for the people and the businesses that are affected by COVID. It's fascinating work and work that's going to impact a lot of people in a positive way.
Thanks for all you're doing to build the industry.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching, and we'll be back in a couple of days with another episode of Ok Xoomer.